All right, folks, we're about to dive into a contentious debate that has everyone talking today.
I think that I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had a moment across the political spectrum of some form of progressive communication that's either left them bewildered or a little like, I don't know about that. But I also think at the same time, there is a message of what I would call like common sense, patriotic pluralism.
Yeah.
That is a majority message, which is like, if some father and mother have health care for their kid lined up who's trans, just stay the fuck out of their business. Let them make that decision. That's their decision to make. And you don't have to make that.
After Bill Maher, known for his no-nonsense style, openly challenged the woke agenda and media bias, Chris Hayes of MSNBC found himself in a difficult.
Ken Martin guy, he said something I've heard Democrats say a lot. We didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but that's it. And I've said this before to Democrats. No, you did. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You did get your message out, and people don't like the message.
Position. What if Maher, in his typical manner, unflinchingly cut through political doublespeak and got right to the heart of the Democratic Party's communication shortcomings?
Comparing it to what Elon Musk is spewing out, unfortunately, on X, you sound like Brett Stevens right now, with all due respect. It's a joke. That's a real time.
And you sound like him, who looks like Rachel Maddow. Ken Martin guy, he said something I've heard Democrats say a lot. We didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but that's it. And I've said this before to Democrats. No, you did. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You did get your message out, and people don't like the message.
But it was Axios that they gave the new media seat to, and that is to Mike Allen, who is like an established reporter in Washington. Axios has been around for like 5 years, sold for $500 million. I don't really consider it new media, and I thought it was interesting that was their first new media.
It is new media, because old media sells for $1.
That is true.
He's highlighting what many of us have long believed, that a lot of socialist projects are simply unrealistic.
I think there's sort of two different imperatives that are in a little bit of tension with each other. So one, I think there's an imperative right now for the party to stand up against the most destructive things that Musk and Trump are doing. And I think they're doing some genuinely destructive things. I mean, there's people walking around the world right now with like devices inside their bodies from clinical trials sponsored by USAID that they can't get out. The guards that were guarding ISIS prisoners in Syria were paid on USAID salaries that got cut off. There's a 25-year-old mucking around the code base of the Treasury system. So there's things they have to do to try to oppose. But it's also the case that like all of the reflection that happened after losing that election and trying to figure about how do you win back people you lost was real and true. And I guess my feeling is you got to fight, you got to try different things, and you have to be authentic. You can't like reverse engineer any of this off a blueprint. And I really think this is true about politics. Steve Jobs once said, it's not the customer's job to know what they want. Like, it's our job. And you couldn't have reverse engineered Barack Obama off of George W. Bush. And you couldn't have reverse engineered Donald Trump off of Barack Obama. What happens in the end of an election is everyone sifts through the data and they come up with their perfect, their plan based on, well, this worked and with this group and we got attack here and there. And what politics about is a certain point is like innovation and communication. You got to come up with new stories.
But did the Democrats really make a mistake? Or is it something more serious?
The argument is whether the child should make the decision.
But the child is never making the decision. The parents are always making the decision. Parents consent to medical care.
Well, here in California, you're allowed to hide it from the parents if the kid is.
Yes.
Thank you, one person who knows that.
But I mean,
somebody knows that.
Now, if you want honest information that challenges the status quo, let's continue analyzing this controversial debate. Chris Hayes and Bill Maher, two well-known voices, aren't just differing to spark discussion, but also to shed light on a crucial issue. Here's how it all happened. Maher started the conversation by outlining what he sees as the primary problem with the Democratic message.
The rubber meets the road, because this is important. He wanted to, this week, he's suing the 12-member commission, the California Coastal Commission. He launches his rockets from Vandenberg Space Force Base. He used to call it Air Force Base, but I guess now we're into Space Force time. He wanted the proposal to expand the number of launches. Okay, again, one of the most impressive companies, an American company. He wants a little more, give it to him. No. The commission, some bureaucrat, said, nope, and this is the reason why. Commissioner Carol Hart saying, we're dealing with a company, the head of which has aggressively injected himself into the presidential race and made it clear what his point of view is. Yes, because he lives in America, and he can do that.
He didn't mince words. Maher says the issue isn't that Democrats haven't gotten their message out. Quite the opposite. Surprise. Surprise. When people heard it, they didn't like it. Maher argues that Democrats must adapt to the realities of the average person, saying it's all about cutting through the noise and focusing on what truly matters to people. Chris Hayes, however, approached the debate differently. He stated that Democrats have two primary responsibilities. First, they must denounce what he calls the destructive behavior of figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
What do you think of the Trump White House admitting more influencers and podcasters into the press corps? Yeah, the press room is different. I mean, it reflects America.
I think it's great.
Yeah, you do.
But it's mostly right-wing influencers and podcasters, obviously, but I think it's a good step. I mean, this is how people are getting their news.
It is. I mean, how can you deny it?
I was actually over there the other day, and it's packed in there. And I think even all the reporters, whether you're Legacy or the podcasting people, they're all happy. And then they have like the one rotating chair, which I guess is pretty cool. So there's always like somebody new that comes in.
So this is you're at the White House, you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was Axios that they gave the new media seat to, and that is to Mike Allen, who is like an established reporter in Washington. Axios has been around for like 5 years, sold for $500 million. I don't really consider it new media, and I thought it was interesting that that was their first new media.
It is new media because old media sells for $1.
That is true.
What do you mean by that?
Well, that's what Bezos bought the Washington Post for. He bought it for like $1.
Hayes argues that while Musk is involved in highly controversial initiatives, Trump's political maneuvers remain a significant concern. But is that really their main issue? Hayes' reasoning seems more like a convoluted maze than a clear, logical argument. Or at least, that's what Maher suggests. And this is where things get interesting. Maher's rebuttal was sharp. He pointed out that the party's current ideologies are not the only factors contributing to division. It's crucial to understand the needs of constituents and the authenticity, or lack thereof, in political messaging. When voters reject a message, it's not time to double down on the same old strategies. He stated candidly, it's time to face reality. Maher drew an interesting parallel to Steve Jobs' philosophy. Jobs famously said that consumers don't always know what they want, so entrepreneurs must show them. But here's where the comparison breaks down. Maher makes it clear. This is politics, not technology. Unlike in the tech world, voters need to connect with policies and believe they will improve their lives. He urges Democrats to confront reality, move past failed strategies, and seriously consider why their message isn't resonating. Now, let's get into a particularly controversial issue: parental rights in education. Hayes pushed the idea that Democrats should support parental decision-making on issues like granting trans teenagers access to gender-affirming healthcare. Hayes argues that parents should be able to make the best choices for their children. However, Maher and many of his critics see another underlying concern: schools potentially keeping these significant decisions from parents. That, Maher finds deeply troubling. He doesn't hesitate to call it out. Beyond alienating people with vague and polarizing ideas, he accuses the left of engaging in what appears to be serious overreach. Maher argues that there is a fine line between protecting children's rights and sidelining parents from crucial decision-making processes. He elaborated on this complex issue, emphasizing the dangers of schools making critical choices without parental involvement. Maher also took aim at mainstream media for promoting these narratives. He argues that legacy media isn't just complicit, it's actively contributing to the Democratic Party's communication failure. Maher criticizes these media outlets for failing to present the full picture and, in some cases, distancing the truth from the majority of Americans. Can they confront this reality, or are they just another cog in this dysfunctional messaging machine? Oh, and what about the criticism of new media's rise? Maher is spot on when he argues that new media is the future, while traditional media clings to outdated norms. It's crucial to recognize that new media plays a massive role in shaping political discourse today. Maher acknowledges this shift, pointing out that fresh perspectives are emerging, and that strengthens his argument. Authenticity and reliability matter more than maintaining the status quo propped up by outdated ideas. All right, let's take a moment to reflect. Bill Maher's critique isn't just about Democratic rhetoric, it's a warning. Adapt to the times or risk further electoral losses. For Maher, the way forward is clear. Communicate honestly, in a relatable way, and focus on what resonates with people's everyday experiences. It's a lot to take in, I know, but isn't that the essence of political discourse today? It's complex, multi-layered, but absolutely necessary. We want to hear from you. After all, discussions like these spark change. What changes do you think the left should make to its message to better connect with voters? So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.